G'day legends, in this video we are going to be tackling the biggest question in MMA at the moment. Which one of the current UFC champions will lose their belt first? And which one is going to be keeping it the longest? Now, this is a summarized version of the discussion that we had on the channel yesterday. It went for about an hour and we really got into the nitty gritty of it. So if you would like to listen to that, you can go to the live tab on this channel. Also, if you enjoy this video and you want more discussions like this in real time, in person, so you can state your opinion, feel free to subscribe to the channel. But what we did was pull up a calendar of the coming year, starting at August 2024 and moving all the way to the future, and we tried to figure out which UFC champion would be keeping their belt for the longest. Now, this is actually a hard thing to predict. You've got to make a lot of predictions for a bunch of upcoming title fights, and having done that and putting it out there in a video like this, I am sure that that is going to come back and bite me in the ass at some point. Anyway, as we move forward, as of August 2024, the next one up is going to be UFC 305, and Dricus du Plessis is going to be fighting and defending his belt against Israel Adesanya. This one already is going to have some contention on it, but I do believe, as much as Izzy is a bit of a prick, he is going to win that fight. Look, at the end of the day, Israel Adesanya is a phenomenal striker, and Dricus du Plessis does rush in with some big meaty overhands, looking to get the fight to the ground, but his entries are sloppy. Over the course of 25 minutes, I do think that Dricus du Plessis is going to be able to put some good hands on Israel Adesanya, but I do think Israel Adesanya's lateral movement and takedown defense is going to set up the perfect counter-strike, and I can see Gyno Bender coming back and being able to sleep Dricus du Plessis, and unfortunately, because of the timing and the circumstances, our boy DDP is going to be the first one to be losing his belt. I'm sorry, Dricus. I'm sorry. Then after that, moving on, there is going to be the UFC's greatest marketing project ever, with the most mid-card we've ever seen, just sprinkled on top with some unaffordable ticket prices. It's UFC 306 at the Sphere. Number one is going to be Alexa Grasso taking on Valentina Shevchenko, and Sean O'Malley is going to be taking on Merab Dvalishvili. Now, I know that Alexa Grasso has the power of the UFC behind her. I mean, officially, when you go on the UFC's website, you will see that of all the champions all over the world, she gets her own custom belt for some reason. But I don't think having Dana White's tongue up her ass is going to save her from the rage of the Bullet, who wants her proper black and gold belt back. I think Grasso falls to Valentina Shevchenko, but I do believe that Sean O'Malley does make it through Merab Dvalishvili, and we leave the Sphere with one champ down and one champ remaining. Next up, UFC 307 in Abu Dhabi. Now, the rumors are so far that it's going to be Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria. And this one is a hard one to predict, a really hard one to predict. It's going to be a striking battle. Ilia Topuria might choose to use some of his old school jiu-jitsu, but we haven't seen him do that in any of his recent fights, and I do think he's got a bit of an ego and going to want to prove that he is better on the hands than Max Holloway is. He is going to be drawn into a stand-up fight. Max Holloway is going to land some really good shots on the outside. Ilia Topuria is going to land some really good shots on the inside. I think this fight is going to be a hard-fought decision. Max's face is going to be all beaten up and bruised, but it is going to be an accumulative damage sort of a fight, where it's sort of like a Nate Diaz sort of beating, an old-school, long-sustained beating, and Max Holloway is going to come out victorious with the belt wrapped around his waist. He is finally, after all these years and battling Alexander Volkanovski again and again and again, Max Holloway is going to be walking away in October with his belt wrapped back around his waist. Ilia Topuria is the next UFC champion to lose his belt. That means we're moving on to UFC 308, Madison Square Garden. It's going to be John Jones, and I assume also being on that card, it should be time for Alexandre Pantoja again. Now, apparently, the rumors are, and I've got to follow rumors when I'm making a video like this, apparently Alexandre Pantoja will be fighting that new kid from Ryzen, Kaya Sakura, I believe his name is. Now, I know I'm an MMA YouTube channel, so I've got to pretend to be way more hardcore than you, and I got to know more about MMA than you do. Honestly, I don't watch that much Ryzen. I barely watch Ryzen, okay? I watch UFC, I watch One. One is better than the UFC, by the way. Go watch One. And I watch Eternal here in Australia, and I try and catch up on Cage Warriors whenever I can. But as I said, we did this first on the live stream, and the live stream assured me that Pantoja's grappling will have what it takes to get past Kai Asakura. So I'm going to go with the live chat on this one and assume that Pantoja keeps his belt. And of course, Jon Jones keeps his belt over Stipe. Yes, we're all counting you out, Stipe, but please, man, please be the one to KO Jones. I want to be proven wrong, Stipe. Do it, mate. Anyway, both champs, I do believe, retain their belts at UFC 308 in Madison Square Garden. Moving on to December, and I've got to keep following the rumors here, and the rumors are that Alex Pereira wants to fight again this year. There are also rumors that the UFC is now looking at Jan Blachowicz instead of Magomed Ankalaev because they want to keep their current face of the UFC with a couple of wins under his belt, and a year older Jan Blachowicz coming off shoulder surgery is a better betting odd, and that's all the UFC is gambling which champions are going to be able to hold their belt the longest and the marketing dollars. So I do think the UFC are going to go with Jan Blachowicz in a rematch against Alex Pereira. And when you're looking at this sort of a fight, you do have to think that a year older Jan Blachowicz coming out of a double shoulder surgery, going up against a Alex Pereira, who seems to have that mythical 20% performance bonus from having a belt wrapped around his waist. I do think that it is a fair assumption to make that Alex Pereira is going to beat Jan Blachowicz in the rematch, and Alex Pereira defends his title in December. That is the end of calendar year 2024. So by the end of 2024, I do believe that we would have lost as our current champions DDP, Ilia Topuria, and Alexa Grasso, but we need to push on and start claiming some more championship heads. At the start of next year, in January, that is generally the worst card of the year. However, 2024 has proven to us that the UFC knows no limits when it comes to putting on dog shit cards. No one wants to fight in January, and we usually go to Canada, and because it's Canada, we have to have an obligatory WMMA co-main event. Now, What's-Her-Face is going to be going in there and fighting Kayla Harrison. Of course, What's-Her-Face is the worst champion in MMA history, and she is going to lose. But also, it would have been several months since UFC 304 in Manchester, and Belal Muhammad will be defending his title for the first time against Shavkat Rakhmonov in Canada at the start of the year. Belal will be about, I don't know, on the 37-year-old side of 36 by then he should be. And Shavkat will just be the raging warlord. We will look to see a double champ loss in January of 2025. What's-Her-Face loses to Kayla Harrison, and Belal Muhammad loses to Shavkat Rakhmonov. Coming into February of 2025, Tom Aspinall should be fighting again, and over the Christmas break, Jon Jones has sat down, spent some time with the family, and really gotten to appreciate how good his wife looks, not covered in bruises, and chosen to leave the fighting life behind, vacating his belt as the unopposed GOAT, never ducking an opponent, never losing a fight, and Tom Aspinall steps up and fights for his undisputed heavyweight title as the co-main event. Weili Zhang has to fight at some point, doesn't she? And I do think that Weili retains her title. Jon Jones is gone, Weili stays. February of 2025 is in the books. Rolling into March of 2025, it is finally time for Islam Makhachev to get back into the cage after his hand injury, and he is going in there against Arman Tsarukyan. I do think at this point in their careers, Islam does easily take care of Arman, so we can crack on to April. It has now been several months since UFC at the Sphere, so it is time for Sean O'Malley to defend again. Now, my best case guess at this sort of future playing out for Sean O'Malley's career is that he's probably going to be going in there against Umar. And I don't see, if Umar can get through Sandhagen, I don't see Sean O'Malley being able to hold off the barrage of takedowns that is Umar. So I think that Sean O'Malley probably loses it in 2025 and looks to move up to 145 pounds. Then in May of 2025, it's time for Alexander Pantoja to defend his belt in the rematch against Steve Erceg. Pantoja is now a year older, but that gives Steve Erceg another year of fight IQ and experience, learning from the close fight that they previously have, where I do think Erceg would have won that original fight if he didn't shoot that takedown in the last 2 minutes of the last round. That key moment sort of changes everything. And I think that is when Alexander Pantoja loses his belt in the rematch of May of 2025. Which takes us, of course, to June of 2025. And by now, Magomed Ankalaev must surely get his shot against Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is now 38 years old. He's fighting an oncoming grapple-heavy plan of Magomed Ankalaev, and it turns up to be a grindy, messy, 25-minute decision, leaving Alex no choice but to move up to a new challenge in life and try and win the undisputed heavyweight championship fight against Tom Aspinall. But that does mean that Alex Pereira does no longer have his light heavyweight title come June of 2025. So that leaves us with 3 champions mid-year of 2025, Weili, Islam, and Tom. 3 champions that we have today currently by the middle of next year. Out of these 3 fighters, I do think that Weili Zhang would be the first one to drop her title. Her fights have been getting closer and closer and closer, and I think if you add on an extra year of age, she does lose that edge that she needs. So unfortunately, Weili is going to be the first one to be losing that belt. Then, after surpassing Khabib's title run, maybe getting 5 title defenses if he can do that. I mean, again, Islam was pushed to his limit by Volk in the first fight and pushed to a 1 judge had it, 2-2 going into the 5th round against Dustin Poirier. So Islam Makhachev is human. He does get pushed. But I do think after getting a couple of lightweight defenses, he does think about retiring at some point. But the question is, does Islam Makhachev retire before that bit of padding on Tom Aspinall's chin stops saving his life? Tom Aspinall gets clipped in every single fight. So you have to ask yourself here at the end of the video, what lasts longer, a Dagestani's career or an Englishman's chin? I'm going with the Englishman's chin. I think Tom Aspinall keeps fighting longer than Islam Makhachev chooses to fight. I'm not saying Islam's going to lose. I'm saying he's going to choose to retire. That is it. Out of the current UFC roster of champions, I do believe that DDP is going to be the first one to lose his belt, and Tom Aspinall is going to keep his belt the longest via the power of default and retirement from Islam Makhachev. That is it. That is my take on which UFC champion keeps their belt the longest. Let me know what you think about it down there in the comments. If you want to get involved in more discussions like this, feel free to hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it. That way you'll know when we go live. We do discussions like this. We do tier lists. We do UFC 5 gameplay. We do live watch-alongs of the cards. Not this weekend because I'm not getting up at 2 a.m. I'll just watch it back in the morning. But everything like that, we do that on the live stream. So until then, you guys have a great day and I will see you all in the next video.